All right, morning everyone. We're just going to do a quick coffee clip here, watching the Detroit versus Florida game from the other night. And we're just going to talk a quick piece here about 2-on-2 entries and how going vertical puts the D in a tough spot. So as we can see here, Finney's got this puck on the outside, and it's a 2-on-2. So Casper has a decision now to say, well, how am I going to get there? So a lot of coaches say we need a driver, we need a driver, we need a driver. That becomes mandatory. But it doesn't necessarily solve a problem. If he drives through, then Finney is limited still. Like, he still has to pull up and try to beat Ekblad. What we like about this vertical entry look is as he draws Ekblad to turn and try to kill the play, and he drops it, now we create the 1-on-2. So a 1-on-2 somewhere, like we say, usually creates a 2-on-1, or it creates an odd man situation is really what it is, right? So in this case, 2v2, if you draw 2 to the puck, we now have one player versus the goalie. So we're not going to dive into the fact that I don't love how his stick fits, and this touch should be much cleaner. His elbow's driving up, and he mishandles it. Could also just be a bad piece of ice on the handle, so not try to dive down that. But this looks like a pretty clean puck. I just do not like his stick, but I love the decision and the fact that we create a partial breakaway on a 2-on-2. Now the other thing that really should be happening here is that this play should have probably been killed in the neutral zone anyways, because this is the Detroit, we're calling it the Phelps line. This is where their highest players with the puck and the threats are. So Ekblad could really just be way higher up as a starting point. He could be trying to slide and squeeze, or not even slide and squeeze. He could just be trying to kill this and force this puck out of his hands. I'd like to see him force it out of his hands before the red, but the very worst, he should be able to force it into a bad area. So don't love those details, but what I do really love is creating, if we have these 2-on-2 rushes, create a vertical drop. Because what really happens here, again on the 1-on-2, is it puts Forsling in a really awkward spot, where in reality, if we're just playing any 2-on-2 sport, we've got a lock. But he backs up because every D is taught, well, we want to defend our net. So he puts it in a weird spot here, but then they both duplicate. So it's kind of the worst case scenario from a defensive standpoint. So I really encourage you guys, off the rush, let's get creative. Bring in these vertical areas. This happens a lot in the league, right? If you turn on any game today, you might see one or two of these, not necessarily with this result, but this is a thought process. In another world, we might have a backside driver here. We might have a third dink where like a D is coming in for this puck for a second wave set offense here. There's a lot of different scenarios that could happen, but yeah, have a happy daylight savings, guys.